Oui, donc bonjour tout le monde. Welcome back to It's Frenchy with Karen. And in today's specific video, we're going to be focusing on the idea of passé composé. So in today's video, again, we will be focusing on the idea of passé composé, which is basically past tense. If you've been watching my previous videos, you should be knowing that we have already discussed quite a lot about passé composé, and I just wanted to go a little bit more in detail about the verb etre. So before I really begin my video, if you're new to my channel, my name is Karen, and in this channel, Frenchy with Karen, I generally go through a lot of different things that relates to the idea of French, and specifically about your AS level examination for French. Given my experiences, I have received a pretty decent grade in my AS level French, and I want to share all of my experiences that I have gained and my study methods that I have used to gain that grade in my AS level French exam here at the YouTube channel. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe because that'd be a huge motivation for me. Whether you have positive or negative comments, do make sure to comment down in the comment section below because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we can improve as much as possible. And if you know anyone who's taking their French AS level examination or is struggling with their French grammar, you can make sure that this video can be passed out towards them because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we can help as many French people as possible. Going straight into our lesson, today we will be talking about le passé composé. Donc, qu'est-ce que c'est le passé composé? What is le passé composé? Now, if you've been following me regularly, you should be knowing passé composé is generally divided into two different categories, which I would say is the auxiliary verb and also your past participle. So, this is how generally it will look like. So, your auxiliary verb followed by your past participle. Now, your auxiliary verb can generally be etre and avoir, so that is very important to keep in mind, etre or avoir. And for past participle, again, if you have an ER verb, you want to add the accents. If you have a RE verb, you want to add the U at the end. So you want to extract that RE and you want to replace it with a U. If you have a IR verb, you want to replace that with an I. So that idea of replacing is very, very essential because that will generally help you to create your past participle. And if this is very confusing for you, do make sure that you're watching my previous videos before you join into this specific video. So today, again, generally, I want to go through the idea of the Van der Tramp list. Now, if you do not know what is the Van der Tramp list, that's completely okay. So the Van der Tramp list generally comprises of, I'd say, 16 different movement verbs. For example, devenir. So how would we conjugate devenir? Let's imagine our subject pronoun is je. Then you will say, je suis devenu. Okay, now if je is a person who is a female, you want to make sure that you can add an E at the end of it. However, let's say if it is not a female, you want to make sure you don't add any E at the end of it. So that's very important for you to differentiate between the two and make sure that you understand if it is a female or if it is a male. The next very important thing is revenir. Now, it ends with an IR, so that's why you will remove the IR and you would insert the U. So, je suis revenu. Okay, so that generally means to come back. Next, monter. Monter is to go up. So, when you yourself are going up, let's say you're going up the staircase, then you can say, je suis monté. Okay, because it's an ER verb, that's why we will add the accent. Now, I want to try different subject pronouns, so I will be using tu this time. Tu es retourné. Okay, tu es retourné. If let's say you are a female, then you would add an E. So again, it depends on the context. If you is a male, then you don't add an E. If you is a female, then you would be able to add an E. Sortir, to go out. So you can say, je suis sorti. venir. So venir is the idea of like to come. So for example, because it starts with an IR, you want to make sure that you can remove and extract that IR and replace it with a U. So you can say je suis revenu. Je suis venu. So that means I have come or I have came. So arrivé. Je suis arrivé. Again, because it is an ER verb, you want to make sure that you're adding that accent, which is extremely important. If I is a female, then you add an extra E, and if I is a male, then you just don't add the E. So that is the differences. C'est la différence entre le femelle et le masculin, le féminin et le masculin. Okay, mourir. So this one, je suis mort. Now this is an irregular one, so you need to know that for mourir, the past participle is mort. Next, je suis parti. More or less the same thing, just generally the idea that because it's an ER, you want to extract the, because it's an IR, you want to extract the IR and replace it with an I. Next, naître. Je suis né. Okay, so the past participle of naître is né. Passe, je suis passé. Descendre, je suis descendu. Again, if you are a female, you add an E. If you're not a female, you don't need to add an E. So it's the same for every verb. Okay, entrer, to enter. So je suis entré. So that is very important. For example, you can say tu es entré, il est entré. Okay, so je suis entré. Okay, and then rentrer. Je suis rentrer. Tomber, je suis tombé. Je suis resté. Je suis allé. Okay, so these are different past participles, again, depending on the subject pronoun. So, je, tu, il, elle, nous, vous, il, elle. So, depending on the subject pronoun, you would have to add an extra E, an extra S, or perhaps even an extra ES. So, those are, I would say, are the differences. Now, just a few little reminders. When you're using the verb etre, you want to make sure about the subject pronoun. So depending on the subject pronoun, you would add the necessary E, the necessary S, or the necessary ES, depending on it. The next very important thing is your past participle. Just be very careful about some of the irregular ones. And etre, only use etre for the Werner chart list, so the 16 movement verbs, and also for the reflexive. So if you watched my micro lesson on the idea of passé composé, you should be knowing what is a reflexive verb. If you don't know what that is, make sure to hop back onto my micro lesson where you would be able to gain a lot more insights about the idea of le passé composé. Okay, next. So for auxiliary rules, there are some certain things that you want to make sure that you should be knowing. So for example, je n'ai pas vu ce film. So remember, because you have the auxiliary a, that's why you want to enclose your ne and pas entre l'auxiliary. So your auxiliary here is a, okay? Because a is your auxiliary, you're going to wrap around ne and pas around the auxiliary, and that is extremely essential. Interrogation. So when you're asking a question, your auxiliary will be placed at the front and then it will be followed by the subject pronoun. So it's always the auxiliary and then you're going to have a hyphen followed by your subject pronoun. So that is the idea, especially when you're trying to do your interrogation or when you're asking a question. So, as-tu mangé ce matin? Let's say, es-tu allé le musée la semaine dernière? So that is very important. Place of pronouns. So pronouns, for example, lui, le, lui, les, leur, ils, on. So no matter what type of pronouns that you have, like if it is indefinitive, definitive pronouns, you want to make sure that your pronoun is always before your auxiliary. So the pronouns always have to be before your auxiliary, which is something that I really want to highlight and let you know of. Because if you don't do that, that can be causing a lot of different confusions for the person who's reading the sentence. Okay, place de l'adverbe. Now, if you don't know what is an adverb is basically something that ends with an ly most of the time, in most cases. For example, lovely, okay, beautifully. So those are the general ideas of adverbs, and they will generally accompany verbs. So they generally complement verbs, I would say. Now, some verbs, for example, bien, beaucoup, tellement, okay, those are adverbs. Now, if the adverb has two syllables, so for example, bien has one syllable, beaucoup has two syllables. If they have two syllables, you are going to put your adverb between the auxiliary and the past participle. So in this case, we have the subject pronoun, which is on, and then you have your auxiliary, and then you have your adverb, and then you have your past participle. So how does this work? So generally, your subject is on, okay? And then we have our auxiliary, which is a. And afterwards, you can see we have our adverb, which is bien, and then we have our past participle, which is manger. Now, apologies, I did not add accents for some of the verbs over here because my keyboard does not give me the permission to add accents. So the idea is the subject is going to be en, and then the auxiliary is going to be a, and then the adverb is going to be bien. And your past participle is going to be manger. Now, here is the adverb. So the adverb is the one in blue. If your adverb is two syllables, you will put it between your auxiliary and the past participle. However, let's say if your adverb is more than two syllables, then you're going to put it behind the past participle. For example, tellement is an adverb. So you will write on a mangé tellement. Okay? So I hope you can see the differences between them. Tellement is three syllables. That's why we'll put it behind our past participle. Now, if you don't know what a passé composé does, I just added a little bit description for those of you who probably don't want to watch my micro lesson, and if you feel like the micro lesson's too long for any reason, here is like a very conceptualized idea of what le passé composé is. So generally, it's because passé composé is used for the actions that have already been achieved and accomplished. So things that have already been done, you will use le passé composé. And let's say une action qui a duré du temps, so something that has been going on for a period of time, you will use le passé composé. Une suite des actions, so there's action 1, action 2, action 3, action 4. So when there's a series or a sequences of actions, you will use le passé composé. Une action qui a répété au passé mais qui a terminé. So something that started in the past but it's now finished. So something that's no longer a habit anymore. I'd like to mention no longer a habit. Then we will use le passé composé. So those are like the four major I would say usage of le passé composé, and I really do hope that this video has somewhat, to a certain extent, taught you some of the things that probably you didn't know about le passé composé before, but now you're well equipped with these knowledge. So if you found this video very helpful, please do make sure you're actually taking the time to subscribe my YouTube channel, because it takes a lot of effort to create this video, and right now I'm a little bit tired, so make sure to subscribe this YouTube channel as much as possible and do support. Do make sure to comment down below in the section if you found this video helpful. Until then, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!